Hi, everybody. Another episode of Chocolate Travels. I'm Joseph, and I'm here with Susana from Cardenas Chocolate in Ecuador. So, hi, Susana. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Joseph. Wonderful to see you.
Excellent. So, let's get right into it. What drew you into chocolate making? How did you end up in this position?
How did I ended up? I think it was destiny. I I come from a region where we have this history with cacao cultivation for centuries. And my region is called Manabi. It's
Mm,
a coastal province here in Ecuador. And, there are traces of cacao here that dates back since when the Spaniards conquerors came
mhm,
to this part of the world, they start documenting what they saw in
mhm,
land. And one of the chronicles said, written by these Spaniards, historian said that we have seen the same fruit that we have found in Mexico. So there is a sea of cacao in this region. And
mm,
that chronicle was written in the 1500s.
mm.
So obviously, we have had cacao here for centuries.
Right, right.
And what drove me to cacao? Well, I come from a family that has been in the industry and harvesting cacao for a few generations from my
Mm,
mother's side in the region
mm,
where she was born. And from my father's side, well, he was from the Andes, he was from Quito, Ecuador, but he immigrated here. And his dream was to have a plot with different crops. And one of
mm.
them was cacao. So
Okay.
I say it was destiny.
When you were a child, did you eat the cacao? Did you guys eat the
Yeah,
fruit and everything?
yeah.
Nice.
I took it for granted,
Mm,
but
right.
I remember vividly the very first time that I made chocolate with my father. I was probably 10 years old. That
Okay.
he came to my house with the beans that he harvested at his farm and said, "We're gonna make chocolate today." And it was,
And how did you guys make it? What was
how do we
chocolate?
make it at home?
Yeah.
Actually, I wrote it in my last blog, my last story at my blog. I wrote it because now that moment, it was so pivotal because I am crafting it chocolate in the same time what I crafted for the very first time
Mm,
decades ago. So we did it manually, grinding, first roasting in a big pot, the cacao in
mm,
a big pot, then grinding it manually with one of those old machines that we had here. And then as we didn't have any mold, we used the ice cubes
ice cube tray.
to put it. And I remember that moment vividly, and I was so happy to take it next day to my school, to my friends. So I
Mm.
did it with my father.
So you were used to a strong tasting chocolate, a dark chocolate, even as a kid, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
grew up with that.
yeah.
Mainly, I would say mainly as a drink, as a hot chocolate, because that's
Mm,
something that it's part of the culture. You have the beans, you roast them, you grind them, and you make like a kind of a bowl that you use it to grind it and make it and mix it for the hot chocolate
mm,
as a
mm,
beverage mainly.
right.
Yes,
So
it was
chocolate growing up was more of a drink. You thought of it more as a drink.
mainly,
Yeah,
mainly.
yeah.
There was an exception with my father when we made the chocolate together that it was actually bean to bar, or I would say bean to truffles, because we made some
Okay.
bonbons to truffles and
Lovely.
crafted at origin. And that was something different because my father was an engineer and he was an inventor and he loved cooking. And so
Mm,
it
mm.
was something that it was like a kind of a inherited from him.
Okay. And then eventually you grew up, you ended up in the UK for a while, and now you're back in Ecuador making chocolate. So how did that happen? Why did you decide to sort of make that your career?
Well, I'm a journalist by training. I moved to Spain to study my master's in journalism.
Mhm.
And then because of love, I ended up in London and working in chocolate over there,
Okay.
writing as a journalist, tasting different kind of cacao that I would have never had the chance to taste it before. Cacao for Madagascar, for example,
Mm-hmm.
for Papua New Guinea. And then my life was all involved in cacao and chocolate, assisting to all the festivals and just tasting on a daily basis and
Yep. Yep.
getting involved in the industry. So when I decided to come back to Ecuador, I said, well, I know how the chocolate industry works and functions in Europe. I should get deep into what's happening in my country. And somehow there was this memory just behind my head very strongly. And I said, well, I have the roots. I have to have it on my DNA. I just need to start researching. And on this journey of traveling along all the five coastal provinces of Ecuador that produce cacao and going to Amazon, I decided to start making chocolate.
Okay. And when did Cardenas Chocolate begin? When was that?
Yeah, well, this is my second venture. I had a previous venture before, and this is my second one that I started as a result of my studies at Cambridge, at the University of Cambridge in England. And it was so interesting because at that particular moment, I was just closing the chapter with the previous venture. And when I got there, I thought, oh my God, they're not going to accept me anymore because I was just closing the chapter with a brand that I had created, that I have won awards, and I was introducing to the UK and European market. But it was a chapter that was finishing. So when I got there, the dean, the director said, Susana, for us, it's not the brand, it's you. You are coming from a cacao growing country. We know that is one of the main incomes of your country, but it's you as a woman that is making a change in that. So they welcomed me wonderfully, and it started in that year, and that was in September 2017.
Okay. Let's learn a little bit more about Ecuador and cacao and chocolate. What are some examples? You gave a little bit, but more examples of how cacao and chocolate is part of Ecuadorian culture and heritage. For most people in Ecuador, is cacao and chocolate very important, or is it more only important for people who grow the cacao? What would you say?
Well, it's part of the culture, I would say, especially in the coast of Ecuador, because anyone here has a link with cacao. Either they were born there in an area that they were growing cacao, or their parents come from there, or their grandparents. So everyone has something on their blood with the name of cacao. This is in the case of the coast. Since there is an industry that has been growing more in chocolate making, people from the Andes, from the highlands of Ecuador, which is mainly Quito, are getting to know more about cacao and chocolate because they're crafting chocolate in the Andes as well. So I will say nowadays it's part of our daily life. For some people, for them others, but for example, if you grow up here, it's like learning to bicycle, to ride a bicycle. It's exactly like that. And if we date back, you mentioned it to me, this you wrote it in my blog about the discovery made in Santa Ana la Florida in south of Ecuador. That was something that completely changed history, and that's a whole thing.
We'll come to that in a moment, but that's a really, really good point. Actually, let's talk about it now. So, a lot of people even today talk about the beginning of cacao and chocolate culture is usually associated with present day Mexico or Guatemala, Mesoamerica. You don't really hear much about Ecuador when it comes to the history of chocolate. So what can you tell us about Santa Ana la Florida? Why did that change how we view the history of cacao and chocolate?
Well, that was a discovery that changed history. And the year in the early 2000s, there was a discovery made by a group of archaeologists, local archaeologists from Ecuador, in the south of Ecuador, in Santana, La Florida, in the province of Zamora-Chinchipe, just in the border with the Amazon rainforest. And they discovered this ceremonial site that they found different objects made out of clay. And then one of these objects that were so significant caught the attention of other international archaeologists. People from CIRAD, from France, joined them, and other historians from Canada, Dr. Cerillo, from different universities, and then got involved and joined together this magnificent discovery that changed the history of cacao. And they say, well, we need to know what was the diet of these people from the culture called Mayo-Chinchipe Marañón. So they start analyzing with carbon-14 what kind of diet they had. So based on the residues found on this pottery, they found traces of cacao already domesticated. And that moment broke the myth that cacao was originated from Mexico. No, it's actually here. It's actually Ecuador. We're sitting in the cacao cultivation, not only in the cacao cultivation. Sorry about this.
That's okay.
Yeah. So we are sitting in the epicenter of cacao cultivation. And the origin of that is 5,500 years ago.
Right.
So that was beautiful, beautiful moment.
Right.
Of course, when they did this discovery, they presented this amazing moment in history to a magazine called Nature, Ecology, and Biology, which is one of the most respected magazines worldwide about discoveries and history and nature. And they said, okay, this is interesting, but you know what? We need to analyze it, and we need to have our research done by our people as well. It took 10 years. It took many years until they verified that this theory was fully true.
Right.
So they did that, and in 2018, the news was released because this story was published in that magazine.
Yeah, I remember reading the research article years ago, and I was like, why is nobody talking about it? It just, for some reason, I guess they were still doing their work, but it wasn't reaching the public. And it was quite fascinating. People were just wowed by it because it's, when it comes to the history of anything, people, sometimes we think we have it figured out, but history is always changing depending on what we discover.
Exactly.
Right?
And so it's changing, and it can change. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in 20 years time and 50 years time, they can find something even older than that in a different part of South America.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, like you said, it dates back to about 3,300 BC, 3,500 BC. And what we know is they found vessels that contained liquids because they were sort of vessels for liquids. But there's also the idea of, did these vessels contain chocolate drink, or was it cacao fruit juice or alcohol, or what was it? So what is the understanding from that research now? Like, we know that humans in Ecuador were using cacao. It's very important in their diet, but what were they actually eating? Do we know yet, or are we still not sure?
We don't know it yet. We certainly don't have an answer for that yet.
Right.
What we know is that this was a tribe, a civilization in the south part of Ecuador that crossed the Andes. There is a valley that is the lowest part of the Andes, that they managed to cross there and reach the coastal part of Ecuador, where there was a very important civilization called the Valdivia, which is also as old as the other one, as the Mayo Marañón. And it's actually one of the oldest in Latin America because they invented clay. They invented the art of crafting things in stone. And there is even a small, extraordinary pieces that we find from Valdivia. So it seems to be that there was an exchange of valuable goods, because they also have found kind of shells originally from that part of Ecuador, from the Valdivia culture, in the site in the Amazon, where they found the bottle with cacao, traces of cacao. So it seems to be that that was the way, that was how cacao was transported from the Amazon of Ecuador to the coastal part of Ecuador. And then, it got dispersed and disseminated all along the coast of Ecuador. So in theory, there is 3,000 years ago. That was 3,000 years ago that when cacao was started planting here. This was a very interesting conversation I had with one of the archaeologists who was there, Dr. Francisco Valdez. He was one of the leading archaeologists. He's Ecuadorian. He lives between Ecuador and France and did this research together with Sirat and many clever people from around the world.
Oh, it's fascinating. Were people in Ecuador excited about this information? Did it create some new pride for Ecuadorians?
And it's getting even stronger nowadays. Probably at that particular time, people, it seems to me that people need to pay attention. It has more impact when there is important news outside Ecuador. But now we embrace it and we feel very proud of this as well.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. A lot of people in the craft chocolate world adore Ecuadorian cacao origins, fine cacao, and now we know why. So can you tell us more about, for people who don't know too much about Ecuadorian cacao, can you tell us more about why is it special? Many different varieties. What's so wonderful about cacao in Ecuador?
What's so wonderful? I will say the white floral notes of our Nacional cacao, which is our endemic and our emblematic cacao we have here in Ecuador. And that is probably one of the ones that it was transported at the very beginning, because this is the main cacao that we have it here in Ecuador. And it's the one that allows us to put the name of Ecuador at the high leagues of the most beautiful cacao worldwide. So Nacional cacao, what would I say? I mean, it's such a noble, such a beautiful plant that it grows here along the whole coast of Ecuador, and the notes are simply unique. I mean, it's like a bouquet of flowers, white flowers with jasmine, maybe the white, the orange blossom flower, and especially here in my region in Manabi, because soil plays an important role in cacao. Here, the quality of the cacao, I mean, the nuances that we found here are so unique, because it's not only white flowers, we also have, like a symphony of hazelnuts and red fruits and some berries. So it's a very unique cacao.
Okay. And something a little bit more controversial is, people love cacao from Ecuador, but then there's also the infamous, CCN51, and people have issue with that. So what can you tell the public about CCN51? What are your views on that? Because in some ways, I know a lot of Ecuadorian farmers have said that growing that has helped them, have a living and things like that. So it's not as black and white as some people make it out to be. So what do you have to say about us understanding that?
Yeah, well, I'm a purist, and I love anything that is connected with the identity of Ecuador. Nacional is one of our icons. So I will always be completely supportive with Nacional. The other crop, I know very little, don't work with it, but I respect the people who use it, because it is a fact that it has changed people's lives.
Yeah.
It has allowed farmers and small growers to educate their children, to send them to the school, to university, because of course it's a higher productivity cacao. So I respect it. It's something completely different. We don't work with it. And, I respect anything as long as it's legal and it changes people's lives. We focus on Nacional. We make, we curate cacao from Nacional variety mainly, and we're very proud to be able to do that, because it's part of our identity.
is there a strong movement from the government and different agencies to protect a lot of the natural endemic cacao in Ecuador?
Well, there is some sense of pride, but I would say we haven't reached that level yet. It should be more a stronger movement to protect the identity of nationality, because I know, and I can see it from people that we work with, they're cutting national in order to grow other crops, not only CCN51, but other kind of crops. So we don't want the national to disappear. We want to keep heritage alive, because it means it's truly connected with the identity of Ecuador and with the beauty of such a delicious cacao that we have to preserve for future generations.
And what is the best way to, it's a big question, but what is the best way to preserve it, do you think?
You know what? I think that there needs to be a stronger commitment, not only by the government, which is pivotal, but by the international market to appreciate what we are doing here at the country of origin. Not only producing this unique bean that is very valuable outside Ecuador, but also appreciating what it means to preserve it, not only for them, but for us and for the world of fine flavored chocolate. It needs to be appreciated. Pay for what you got. It's exactly like a beautiful bottle of wine. You know, I see. We just returned from California a few months ago after attending the Seattle show, the Northwest Festival, and it was such a wonderful place to see all these winemakers, making this beautiful wine from the beautiful grapes they have had. It's exactly the same here with cacao. Encourage people to appreciate, to have this appreciation for cacao and chocolate crafted out of region.
Right. That's why it's so crucial to keep growing the craft chocolate movement, because those are the ones buying this fine cacao. And, a lot of us, I think, take it for granted. If you live in places like North America, you've there's beautiful cacao here, and I can just enjoy it. But a lot of people don't realize what's happening in the country. And sometimes we could lose these things if they're not paid attention to and preserved actively. Right. So it's important not to take for granted that Ecuador has this beautiful national cacao, because you want to preserve it, you want to keep it.
Certainly. And don't only move also only for price as a commodity. Cacao is so expensive at the moment because there is a lack of cacao in other parts of the world. And also because, the cacao harvest is delayed. Last year, we had already harvested our production. Now we're just waiting. There is not enough cacao.
For your company now, you're focusing on cacao from Tierra Hermosa. So can you tell us more about why you chose to focus on this region?
Okay. Tierra Hermosa is the name of how my region is known for. Manabi is also known Tierra Hermosa. And for me, I wanted to pay a tribute to this beautiful region that has this history with cacao cultivation. I wanted to pay a tribute to the previous generations, of all the people who were before us, who were making a change, and that for many years they were forgotten. This is the reason why when I started my second venture, which is this, Cardenas Chocolate, I decided to go to a region that was completely forgotten. But I knew that they had a beautiful cacao. Why? Because over there was one of the most iconic farms or estates that we had in Ecuador 120 years ago. So, golden age of cacao and in late 1800s, early 1900s. Everyone was having a, wonderful life. And then the cacao, the witches from the sea arrived, and that area was completely forgotten. My family comes from there. And I remember when I came back from England, I said, I want to go to a place that no one else has seen it. And it's funny enough, because I have the connection with there. My mother was from there. My grandfather was there. And I discovered this farm, this estate that was completely forgotten, that now belongs to small scale growers. And I have started working with them. The idea is to regenerate that land, that it was completely forgotten, that probably the cacao they had, they were sold to the, I don't know, I don't want to name, but to big multinationals for prices that you don't want to know.
Right.
The idea was to regenerate them and just make them think, listen, what you got in your hands is gold. And I love it and want to value and want to transform that in a chocolate that will tell the story, not only your story, but the story and the identity of our whole region.
I think that's such a beautiful story because it resonates with what's happening in a lot of parts of the world where makers and whatnot are sort of going in, and a lot of people don't realize they have wonderful cacao on their hands, you know, but they just don't have a market for it. Maybe they didn't know, maybe they don't know how to ferment properly, but they could be sitting on a gold mine as far as beautiful, flavorful cacao, you know? So that's wonderful that you zone in on just a specific area and just highlight it for what it is. Yeah.
So this is what it is, Tierra Hermosa. It hasn't happened just out of the blue. It has taken us years just to put together this team of people, the growers, there in Chone, and this beautiful land that it has. It was found. This estate was founded in 1891. So you can imagine a few
generations.
generations. We managed to work with them, but also we have found an amazing team who is in charge of reaching excellency in fermentation. We don't do it on our own. We have an amazing team in place already working with us, along with us, who have this alignment in the whole concept that is behind Cardenas Chocolate.
Can you tell us more about that? Because that's if somebody wants to develop an area and get, better at fermenting, how did you bring that together? Who were these people and
how
did that come together?
Well, you need to have, I would say, even a sensibility or a level of sociological skills in order to do that. And I don't know, maybe it's my journalistic background that allows me to communicate with different kind of people, allow me to get in touch with them and get deep into the soul, the core of it. Some of them are relatives of mine, are members of my family, that at the same time, they're leaders of a community of cacao growers in the area that is say, well, Susana, we have been, how do you say, engañado? Oh, I don't know the word. It's betrayed. We have been lied. We have been lied by big groups that have made us offers that we're gonna give us. They're gonna give us such a good price. They're gonna change our lives, and at the end, they just go and walk away.
And that's not the first time I've heard that. A lot of people say things
so
like
they wouldn't trust anyone. But the fact that I can tell, well, I have Uncle Plinio here, and Uncle Plinio was 97 years old when he died, which was last year. That who was a very well-known and respected gentleman there, and they knew that okay, Susana is the niece of Senor Plinio. Well, we can trust her. But it didn't happen just by arriving. You have to create the bond. You have to really get there. And I want to say live, but live the reality. Have to live, because it's not an easy life. It's quite challenging.
Yeah.
And well, after years of creating these bonds with these incredible people, because not everyone is amazing and good and good, you have to also learn and be discerning who you work with, who you can trust with, who you can work with.
Yeah.
So that was from the farm perspective. And then from the fermentation center, we have found also an incredible team of people, which is led by a woman. It's an Italian lady living here that have found this excellency in fermentation, and we're very happy to be working with her. And that's just only 20 kilometers away from the farm that we ferment the cacao. And before we used to craft our chocolate. Well, there are incredible and very high-tech chocolate factories in the Andes of Ecuador. But we're very happy that this, our latest harvest, Tierra Hermosa, the harvest we just made now, last week, is harvested here, is crafted here in Manta, my hometown,
Beautiful.
90 kilometers away from the cacao farm, by local people that they also have on their DNA cacao. The most of them come from cacao growing areas, cacao growing family, and we're very happy to keep it here, local. Say it is 100% crafted at the region, just 90 kilometers away from this beautiful cacao.
Yeah, and I think you can also create a better product when the people who are involved in it are directly connected to it. There's no separation there. So there's more passion involved, there's more dedication. People are really proud of what they're doing because they're connected. It's part of who they are. So that's wonderful to hear. But I imagine, I'm just assuming that making chocolate in Ecuador perhaps has its own challenges than maybe making chocolate in, Canada or America or things like that.
Well, it's yeah. But you can only change things by taking the risk and doing it and be bold.
Yeah.
There were centuries, I would say centuries and decades of just growing the beans, harvesting the bean and selling it and sending it to the US, to Europe, to Canada. Things need to change here. And this is what we're doing. We're very happy to be making a contribution for things to change here. It is challenging, yes. It is difficult, it is. But you know what? We have found this incredible team, not only committed but passionate team of people here. And you have to give people a chance. You have to believe in people. And if there is few things that it can be improved, okay, give it a chance to improve. Well, we have won already 12 awards at the Academy of Chocolate of London, and all with our chocolate crafted at the region. And I would say our main competitor is always ourselves, because we need to elevate the chocolate and the cacao year by year. And this is our aim, and this is what we are trying to do.
What would you say are the main challenges right now for your company making chocolate in Ecuador?
Well, making chocolate in Ecuador, this is only one part of the change of reaching excellency and making a beautiful chocolate at the country of origin. One of the most challenging challenges, I would say, is putting it into the right hands in the northern hemisphere, including Europe and North America. And well, we'd love to be in Canada, and we'd love to be in Japan as well one day. But I would say that is one of the most challenging things, to make consumers understand the value of crafting chocolate at origin, make it, keeping it local, because it's not only has to be delicious, it not only has to be safe to eat in a chocolate crafted from Ecuador, but you have to also think in the future and think that you have to make things change to transform what is all around you. And by doing it here, you're making a big impact.
Is it difficult for people who make chocolate at origin, in Latin America? Is it difficult to get your product into those other markets?
Well, as you might know, Joseph, there is a saturated market at the moment from chocolate from different parts of the world. So it could be very competitive. Yes, it is competitive. And I would say that, and I wish, all the people who get into chocolate, making a chocolate, creating a chocolate brand from the beginning, right now, well, I wish them all success and luck, because it's a very saturated market. So you have to make a difference. You have to really stand out with something unique that you are able to tell it on the first hand and say, yes, it comes from here. Members of my family are harvesting this cacao. I can name absolutely everyone who is behind here. I can even name when the cacao was harvested, because if you see here, Okay, Cardenas Chocolate is the brand. The collection is called Tierra Hermosa, which is a tribute to Manabi. Manabi, Ecuador, 72%. And this is our 2023 harvest, right? We even put the year of the harvest. It's exactly like a beautiful bottle of wine.
This is something consumers have to understand too, is that a lot of, especially shoppers in Canada, America, Australia, they look for things like fair trade certification and this certification. But what you're doing surpasses that certification. You know,
It's beyond, yeah, yeah,
way beyond that.
yeah.
It's what fair trade wished it was, you know? And so I think it's important for people who have those values and want to support sort of what you're doing to be able to be more informed about it, you know, so they can appreciate it. So that's a hurdle. I think for a lot of makers like you is that what you're doing is incredible, and people don't, they're not gonna
And
when they see your bar on the shelf, then it doesn't make sense to them. You know, there has to be that educational component to it. So that's a big challenge as well. But that's why we have to
also,
keep educating.
you have to pay for a good chocolate. It's exactly like with a bottle of wine. You have bottles of wine that, I don't know, for $5, $10, 20, 100, and $1,000 bottle, right? Same has to be chocolate. You don't have to undervalue all the job and all the work that is behind
Right.
a chocolate bar.
Right.
Because there are many people in the supply chain that is paid properly. I wouldn't say fair because I think it's a overused term, but it has to be paid, you know, the correct amount for what they do.
Right. And that, I think people like the idea of, you know, for instance, instead of dictating to the farmers what you're going to pay them, is that they have a say in what they want to sell it for, right? That's a very important aspect of it too. There's that negotiating, that they have some power too in that negotiation process. A little bit of what has been the reception. We know that, you know, in London and in a lot of places, they love your chocolate, but what is the reception locally? You know, how do people in Ecuador view this bean to bar chocolate, your craft chocolate? How is that received?
Well, our market is not Ecuador.
Mm-hmm.
I would say because the percentage of consumption locally in Latin America is very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
So we rather keep all our energies and resources and sending it to the countries that has the high end consumption in chocolate, which is mainly Europe and in the United in the North America. We love to be in Canada also. Hopefully we'll have the chance. So what is the reception locally? You know what? I think they find it interesting that a woman is leading a project like this, which is immersed in a very masculine world. Because I would say 98% of all the supply chain of the people I work with are men. And I think they find it interesting that a woman is leading something like this. And it's leading in a very feminine way as well. I mean, because I'm not, you know, I'm not wearing like a very masculine suit and wearing, you know, like boots.
Right.
No.
You're just yourself.
I love being feminine, you know, I love wearing lipstick and I love having this stamp of being a woman, yes, who loves beauty, who loves art, and who loves fashion. So I really find it fascinating. And we have managed to reach a very niche market locally who are all these connoisseurs, who are these gourmands, who love, you know, enjoying a nice glass of wine, who loves, you know, good food and good, you know, preparing good food. They appreciate what we do. And it might be a small niche, but that's fine. I mean, that's the way we spread the word of what we do in Cardenas Chocolate.
And I also ask because a lot of people in, you know, Latin America and cacao growing regions, this idea of craft bean to bar chocolate, the flavor profiles that a lot of you try to achieve is very different than what they are used to as far as chocolate bars and candy bars and things like that. So I'm curious, did, you know, the people that you work with, you know, when they're trying your chocolate compared to maybe the industrial chocolate they get in the markets there, you know, what was the reception? You know, maybe some of them loved it, some of them didn't like it.
Yeah, some of them don't like it because they find it too intense, which is
Right.
always much of the majority.
Right.
But most of them, they recognize good cacao because
Mm.
they know it. They grew up with it. So
Mm.
they taste it and say, oh, it is exactly like the one my mother used to make.
Mm.
Exactly like the one we used to eat, prepare with my grandmother.
Mhm,
So they
mhm.
have it because
Yeah.
they have somewhere on the back of their head
Right.
that connection with their origin. And that's a beautiful thing. That's
Yeah.
a wonderful thing. I feel very pleased when I hear comments of that, especially with members of my team.
Yeah, that's wonderful because they grew up, probably like you, with their parents grinding the cacao on the stove,
Yeah.
toasting it on the stove. But that essence of the flavor is still maintained in your bars. And so for them, that's probably a
Yeah,
wonderful experience. Yeah,
it
beautiful.
is indeed.
What is your current lineup of chocolate bars? Let's talk about what are you producing right
Oh,
now?
wow.
And do you
Yeah.
have any ideas for products in the future?
Ideas of products in the future. That's a very good question because that's related to innovation that we love. We have, we are sticking ourselves to I would say our bestsellers,
Mm.
which is this four I'm going to show you. So this is our Tierra Hermosa pure.
Mhm.
This is our Tierra Hermosa with cacao nibs. This is Tierra Hermosa with sea salt. And this is our coffee. Why are we sticking to these ones? Because these are actually the best sellers,
Okay.
especially in Europe. People love it. People love it, these flavors. And sometimes, well, you have to pay attention to the market, what the clients are saying. And so this is what the one we just released, produced our latest batch. And this is a beautiful selection.
What kind of
And
coffee are you using for the coffee
yeah,
bar?
the coffee. Well, actually, it's a beautiful coffee. Everything that we do in Cardenas Chocolate has this cultural and identity element. The coffee, it's called Hippie Hapa. Let me show it to you. It's funny because my friend Hazel Lee from London say, I love the name. It sounds like happy. So Hippie Hapa, which is here,
Yeah.
Japa was the main region of coffee that produced coffee in Ecuador more than 100 years ago. And it's a town in my region that it used to be a very wealthy town. They sold tons of coffee from here. It's Arabica coffee. But you know what? They did a mistake. They didn't invest it in their own city. They left. They went to other bigger cities of Ecuador, Quito and Huila. Then when the market collapsed, this town was completely forgotten. But it still had very small production of coffee. So when I wanted to make this bar with coffee, I said, you know what? I want to give it this town. Again, I would love to make a contribution and bring this glory to this town. That is here in Manabi, and that is still producing a beautiful, beautiful coffee. And actually, I'm going to share it. I'm going to show it to you because this is one of our iconic.
I wish I could taste it right now.
Oh my God, how can we send it to you? So this is our latest batch of Cardenas Chocolate. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
This is the craftsmanship of all the people
Beautiful
that will
shine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very talented people here, Joseph, and we're very happy to be working with them. And so this is our Tierra Hermosa, 72%, and the coffee. It's just a spring coffee.
Okay.
Because the main character always has to be the chocolate. But the scent of it is unique, and we're very happy to be working with this small cooperative of coffee. It's coffee growers in Hibijapa. And yeah, we won some awards. Yes, we won the Academy of Chocolate in London in 2020. So it's already awarded. So beautiful coffee. So that is one of the, I would say, one of our main range of chocolates that we got at the moment. which is the four, I would say, our loan sellers, because they're still selling beautifully. And we launch the one with mango, which is more for I would say more of less connoisseur or
Right.
adventurous
Right.
palate. They love it. It's fun. It's more frugal.
Mm.
And this is what we got at the moment.
Did you want to share any ideas you have for the future?
Oh yes,
Did
we
you want
also
to
oh,
introduce
yes,
milk chocolate and things like that one day? What do you think?
milk chocolate. You know, we can't make milk chocolate in Ecuador and send it to Europe or the US. We can't, because there is a law that doesn't allow you
Mm.
to bring anything with dairy from Latin America, especially to Europe.
Ah,
So, but
that's
you
an
know what?
interesting point.
I'm happy because I'm a purist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm a purist. We want to keep giving this protagonism
Mm.
to cacao. Cacao has to always be the heroine of this our story.
Of course.
And we also have our chocolate buttons, which is couverture, also region from Manabi, Ecuador. And this is something that chocolatiers in England have been using it to craft their bonbons. They have been winning awards.
Wonderful.
And a beautiful range that we want to.
Do you think it's important to start reaching the chocolatiers and the pastry chefs with your chocolate as well, not just the bars? Is that, yeah?
Yeah, because it's a whole industry together. I mean, I will say I'm the founder and I'm the curator of the whole concept. But it's not that I'm crafting the chocolate myself. It's not that
Right.
I'm making the bonbons. I have a very strong interest in all the stories behind. That's my journalist side, and all the story, the history, the botany, the sociology that is behind. And I think it's a beautiful conglomerate of people that can really make this industry work. Craft chocolate makers, chocolatiers, important people like you who are not only because you are a chocolate maker, but you also have your boutique of chocolate, just to influence and just have a message that can resonate to people who have no knowledge whatsoever about chocolate, fine flavored chocolate. So it is important.
Yeah, people ask me, how come you don't have your own line or have your own shop? I'm like, even if I did, I can't not share all this chocolate. There's so many amazing makers out there.
Yeah.
I have to share it. It's beautiful. So, and I would love to see more, because I think you're talking about how the market is sort of small for the bean to bar world, but this is the idea of selling individual bars to people sitting down eating it. But there's so many more uses of chocolate that I think hasn't been tapped into. And it would be wonderful to see more chocolatiers and pastry chefs using this chocolate that has an identity instead of the couverture.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and just, give it a chance to people who are really curating cacao, curating chocolate, really connecting all these stories behind a beautiful truffle that they will make. That is far away from the mainstream chocolate, big chocolate multinationals and chocolate makers. That they only want volume at the end of the day. They only want volume, and they will punish people. They will punish individual and independent chocolate makers or chocolate entrepreneurs like us, because the prices they put are impossible for us.
Yeah.
So please,
people don't realize, in order to get the better price, there's a lot of harm that has to be done,
Yes.
And if people realize that, it'd be like open their eyes a little bit more,
Yeah, you have to realize that in order to want to enjoy a beautiful chocolate bar, chocolate bonbon, you have to pay for it.
Yeah. And do you have any goals or hopes for the future for your business? What do you hope to achieve with what you're doing other than making wonderful chocolate?
Well, you know what I really want? I really want to make people here aware that this region cultivates and harvests one of the most beautiful cacaos we have in Latin America, for sure, and in the world. Manabi has been award-winning not only of craft chocolate makers like ours, like Cardenas Chocolate, but also the cacao has been awarded several times at the Excellent Cocoa Award in Paris. So this land that we are just 90 kilometers away from it, it's a beautiful area for cacao, and people have to be, feel proud of what they got, proud of what their grandparents did, what the older generations did, in order for them to have what they got. And we have to keep it. We have to keep it for the future and for future generations. And we're making our contribution. I want my nieces and my grandnieces and my nephews to say, well, my auntie Susana, she did this. That will draw a very big smile on my face, even if when I'm not in this world.
Yeah. So chocolate's about people as much as it is about the cocoa bean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Susana. It was wonderful to get to know you, understand what you're doing, and I wish you a lot of success.
Thank you, Joseph. And please keep spreading the word of beautiful, fine flavored chocolate and cacao.
Well, you can't stop me. Thank you so much. All the best.
Okay. Adios, un gusto. Ciao.
Adios. Ciao. Download the free Bean to Bar app to connect with incredible chocolate makers from around the world. Also be sure to visit beantobarworld.com, your portal for all things fine chocolate, virtual tastings, free learning resources, research, and much more. Subscribe to the newsletter to stay in touch and donate to the free app and free resources here. Contact me for any chocolate-related questions you may have.